The storm hit New Busan without warning. Taemin Park pulled his jacket tighter as wind and rain hammered the mining colony. The weather scanner in his hand beeped wildly, showing red warnings across the screen. All aircraft were grounded. No one could fly in this mess. Taemin was supposed to check the mining equipment in Sector 7 before the storm got worse. He drove his ground vehicle through muddy paths, squinting through the windshield. The wipers could barely keep up with the rain. Lightning split the dark sky every few seconds. He had worked on Kepler 442b for 3 years now. The planet was rich in rare metals that Earth needed. The work was hard but paid well. Taemin sent most of his money back to his family in Seoul. His mother still worried about him living so far from home. The mining equipment looked fine when he reached Sector 7. Just some loose panels that the wind had shaken. Taemin tightened the bolts with his wrench. The storm was getting worse. He needed to get back to the settlement before the roads became impossible to drive. That was when he saw the smoke. A thin line of black smoke rose from the canyon below. It was hard to see through the rain, but something was definitely burning down there. Taemin grabbed his binoculars from the vehicle. Through the lenses, he could make out twisted metal among the rocks. A ship had crashed. Taemin checked his radio. Static filled the channel. The storm was blocking all communications. He looked at the steep path down into the canyon. It would be dangerous to climb down in this weather, but if someone was hurt down there, they would die waiting for help. Taemin had been a military medic before becoming a mining engineer. He knew what it meant to leave people behind. He grabbed his emergency medical kit and started climbing down. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was small, maybe the size of a car, but its metal surface seemed to shift colors even in the dim light. Strange symbols covered the hull. This was definitely not human technology. The crash had torn a hole in the side of the ship. Taemin peered inside. Emergency lights blinked weakly, casting red shadows on the walls. The air smelled strange, like flowers mixed with electricity. Then he heard it. A soft whimpering sound. Taemin squeezed through the hole into the ship. The inside was filled with broken equipment and sparking wires. In the back corner, huddled behind what looked like a pilot's seat, was a small figure. It was a child, but not a human child. The being was about the size of a 10-year-old human, but her skin looked like it was made of crystal. It shifted from pale blue to deep purple as Taemin watched. Large eyes, bigger than any human's, stared at him with fear and pain. The child was clearly female, though her features were more delicate than a human's. She was badly hurt. Dark fluid leaked from a wound in her side. Her breathing was quick and shallow. Without his medical scanner, Taemin had to rely on what he could see and feel. The child was going into shock. The alien child spoke in a language Taemin had never heard. Her voice was musical, even filled with pain. She pointed to a broken device on the floor. It looked like some kind of translator, but it was clearly damaged beyond repair. Taemin held up his hands to show he meant no harm. He pointed to himself and said slowly, "Taemin." Then he pointed to her and raised his eyebrows in a question. The child seemed to understand. She touched her chest and made a sound like Nira. Her skin flickered from purple to a lighter blue. "Nira," Taemin repeated, and her eyes widened with what might have been surprise or hope. The ship shuddered as another lightning bolt struck nearby. Sparks flew from damaged circuits. The emergency lights grew dimmer. This place was not safe, and the child needed medical attention immediately. Taemin examined Nira's wound as gently as he could. She flinched but did not pull away. The injury was deep, probably from sharp metal during the crash. She was losing too much blood. Her alien physiology was different from humans, but the basics of trauma medicine were probably the same. He opened his medical kit and pulled out bandages and antiseptic. Nira watched him with those large eyes. When he began cleaning her wound, she gripped his arm. Her hand was surprisingly warm, and her skin felt smooth like polished stone. The bleeding slowed with pressure and bandaging, but Nira needed more help than Taemin could give her here. He looked around the damaged ship. Some of the alien technology still worked. A small device that looked like a battery pack was still glowing with soft light. Taemin made a decision. He could not leave the child here, and he could not get help to her in this storm. He would have to move her. There was an old mining shelter about half a kilometer away. It had basic life support, and would be much safer than this wreck. Taman fashioned a stretcher from pieces of the ship's interior and carefully moved Nira onto it. The journey to the shelter was the longest half-kilometer of Taman's life. The storm raged around them as he pulled the stretcher over rocks and through mud. Nira drifted in and out of consciousness. Several times Taman had to stop and check her pulse to make sure she was still alive. The mining shelter was small but solid. Taman got the heating system running and set up a makeshift medical area. He used the alien power pack to provide extra light. Nira's condition seemed to stabilize once she was warm and dry. For the next 3 days, the storm continued. Taman stayed with Nira, monitoring her condition and sharing his emergency rations. She was afraid to eat human food at first, but hunger eventually won. She seemed to like the protein bars best. Communication was difficult without the translator, but they managed with gestures and simple words. Nira taught him basic words in her language. She called water Vel and pointed to the sky when she said Uma, which Taman guessed meant home or ship. Nira's skin color seemed to show her emotions. Blue meant calm or happy. Purple meant scared or sad. Red meant pain. As the days passed, Taman saw more blue and less red. On the third night, Nira fell into what seemed like natural sleep instead of unconsciousness. Her breathing was steady, and the wound was healing faster than Taman had expected. She was going to live. That was when the sky filled with ships. They were not human vessels. These ships were elegant and large, with the same color-shifting metal as Nira's crash scout ship. They moved silently through the now clear sky, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. The largest ship landed near the shelter. Its ramp lowered with a soft hiss and figures in flowing robes stepped out. They were tall versions of Nira, with the same crystalline skin and large eyes. The figure in front removed her hood. She was clearly a leader, her skin shifting between deep purple and silver in patterns that seemed too complex to be random. When she saw Nira safe in Taman's arms, her skin flashed bright gold. She spoke in the same musical language as Nira. Though Taman could not understand the words, he could hear the relief and gratitude in her voice. This had to be Nira's mother, and judging by the size of her fleet, she was someone very important. The tall woman approached the shelter with careful steps. Her robes flowed behind her like liquid metal. 2 other aliens followed her, but they kept their distance. Taman could feel the authority radiating from her even before she spoke. Nira stirred in his arms and looked up. When she saw the woman, her skin burst into bright gold patterns. She called out in her musical language, the word sounding like Amma. The woman's stern expression melted instantly. She knelt beside them and spoke softly to Nira, touching her face with gentle hands. Nira chattered excitedly, pointing at Taman and using the few human words she had learned. The woman's large eyes turned to study Taman with intense focus. One of the other aliens stepped forward and activated a device. When he spoke, the words came out in accented but clear English. I am Commander Dongwu, translator for Admiral Yuna of the Falani Defense Fleet. The Admiral wishes to know what happened to her daughter. Taman looked between the commander and the woman called Yuna. So Nira was the daughter of an admiral. That explained the size of the rescue fleet. There was a storm, he said carefully. I found her ship crashed in the canyon. She was hurt badly, Dongwu translated quickly. Yuna listened, then spoke at length. Her voice was commanding even when gentle. The admiral wants to examine her daughter, Dongwu said. Please step back. Taman started to move away, but Nira grabbed his shirt with surprising strength. She spoke rapidly to her mother, her skin flickering between gold and purple. Yuna's expression grew thoughtful. A medical team emerged from the ship carrying advanced scanning equipment. They worked quickly, passing glowing devices over Nira's body. The lead medic spoke to Yuna in urgent tones. Her skin shifted to deep purple, then to an alarming shade of red. What is it? Taman asked, though he was not sure if he should speak. Dongwu looked troubled. The medical scan shows that Nira's injuries were much worse than we thought. Internal bleeding, organ damage, severe trauma. Without immediate treatment, she would have died within hours of the crash. Yuna stood slowly and walked over to Taman. She was tall, almost 2 meters, and her presence was overwhelming. She spoke directly to him, her voice filled with emotion. The Admiral says you saved her daughter's life, Dongwu translated, but there is more. Your medical techniques were unusual. You used crude tools and basic methods, but they worked better than our advanced medicine would have. You improvise solutions that our doctors would never have considered. Taman felt uncomfortable under Yuna's intense stare. I just did what I could with what I had. Any medic would have done the same. When this was translated, Yuna's skin patterns changed again. She spoke for a long time, her voice growing more formal. The Admiral declares you a Kethmiran, Dongwu said. In our language, this means life guardian. It is a sacred bond in Vellani culture. You are now considered family, with all the honors and responsibilities that brings. That's very kind, Taman said, but I was just helping a hurt child. Anyone would have done the same. Dongwu translated, and something shifted in Yuna's expression. She spoke sharply to the commander, who looked surprised. The Admiral says you do not understand, Dongwu said slowly. The life debt cannot be refused. You saved her only child. In our culture, this creates bonds that last for generations. You must be properly honored. I appreciate the gesture, Taman said, but I need to get back to the mining colony. My supervisors will be worried about me. This translation caused an even stronger reaction. Yuna's skin flashed red and silver. She spoke rapidly to her guards, who stepped closer to Taman. The Admiral insists that you come with us to the Vellani homeworld, Dongwu said. His tone had changed, becoming more formal. You will receive the honors due to a Kethmiran. Refusing such an honor is difficult for us to understand. Taman felt the situation slipping away from him. Look, I'm grateful for the offer, but I have a job here. I can't just leave. Nira had been listening to the conversation with growing distress. Her skin turned purple as she spoke urgently to her mother. Yuna knelt and held her daughter, speaking softly. But when she stood again, her expression was determined. The Admiral says you do not understand the significance of what has happened, Dongwu said. To refuse the Kethmiran bond brings shame to her family. It suggests that saving her daughter means nothing to you. That's not what I meant, Taman protested. Of course it means something, but I don't need rewards for helping someone. The translation caused Yuna to exchange glances with Dongwu. They spoke quietly for several minutes. Taman noticed other Vellani gathering around the shelter. Their faces were unreadable, but he felt like he was being studied. The Admiral has made her decision, Dongwu announced. You will accompany us as our honored guest. Your mining colony will be informed that you are safe and will return when the proper ceremonies are complete. And if I refuse? Taman asked. Dongwu hesitated before translating. Yuna's response was brief but firm. The Admiral says that refusing is not an option that she can accept. To let you go now would dishonor both your sacrifice and her gratitude. It would suggest that Vellani do not value life as they should. Taman looked around at the assembled aliens. They were not threatening him directly, but the message was clear. He was not being given a choice. Nira pulled on his shirt again. When he looked down, she spoke in careful, broken English. Taman, come, please. Her large eyes were filled with hope and worry. Taman realized that refusing might not only offend Yuna, but could hurt Nira as well. The child had grown attached to him during their time in the shelter. How long would this take? He asked. The ceremonies take several weeks, Dongwu replied. But as Kethmiran, you would have a permanent place in Vellani society if you chose to stay. Yuna gestured toward her ship. The ramp was still lowered, waiting. Medical personnel were preparing to move Nira aboard for better treatment. Taman made his decision. He could not abandon Nira now, especially when she was still recovering, and perhaps it would be good to learn more about these aliens. The colonies needed to know about other intelligent species in the galaxy. All right, he said. I'll come with you. Yuna's skin brightened with gold patterns when this was translated. She bowed formally to Taman, then spoke at length. The Admiral welcomes you as family, Dongwu said. You will be given quarters appropriate to your status and all the comforts of Vellani hospitality. As they walked toward the ship, Taman carried Nira. She was getting stronger, but still tired easily. The inside of the vessel was beautiful beyond description. The walls seemed to glow with soft light, and the floors felt warm under his feet. The quarters they showed him were indeed luxurious. The room was large, with a view of space through a transparent wall. There was a bed, furniture that adjusted to his body, and access to Vellani entertainment and education systems. But when Taman tried the door after everyone left, it would not open. He was a guest, but he was also a prisoner. The realization hit him as he stood at the window, watching his adopted planet grow smaller in the distance. Yuna truly believed she was honoring him. But her idea of honor was very different from his idea of freedom. Nira was brought to visit him once they were underway. She was feeling much better and excited to show him around the ship. But even she seemed confused when Taemin asked about leaving. "Leave?" she said in her careful English. "But you are family now. Family stays together." Taemin was beginning to understand just how different human and Vellani cultures really were. Life aboard the Starlight Harmony was comfortable but strange. Taemin had everything he could want except the one thing that mattered most: the freedom to leave. His room was bigger than his entire apartment back on New Busan. The food was excellent, appearing at regular times through a delivery slot. The entertainment system could show him anything from human movies to Vellani cultural programs, but the door still would not open when he wanted it to. On his third day aboard, a visitor came to see him. She knocked politely and waited for permission to enter. When the door slid open, Taemin saw a woman who looked almost human but with the telltale shimmer of Vellani skin and slightly larger eyes. "Hello," she said in perfect English. "My name is So Young. I am here to help you understand our ways." Taemin gestured for her to sit in one of the comfortable chairs. "You're half human," he said. It was not a question. So Young nodded. "My father was a human trader who worked with the Vellani 20 years ago. My mother was a diplomat. Their marriage was unusual, but it taught both species much about each other." "Then you understand why I want to leave," Taemin said. So Young's expression grew sad. "I understand why you think you want to leave. But you do not understand what Admiral Yuna is trying to do for you. She's keeping me prisoner. She is protecting her family's honor and ensuring you receive proper recognition. To let you go would suggest that saving Nira meant nothing. It would shame her ancestors and damage her standing in society." Taemin rubbed his temples. "But I don't want recognition. I just want to go home." "That is what makes this so difficult," So Young said. "Humans value individual choice above almost everything else. Vellani value family and tradition. When these values conflict, there is no easy solution." Over the following days, So Young became Taemin's guide to Vellani culture. She explained their long history, their complex social structures, and their rigid codes of honor. The Vellani had been spacefaring for over 3,000 years. They had built a peaceful empire based on mutual respect and careful tradition. "We have not had a major war in 800 years, So Young told him as they walked through the ship's observation deck. "Our society values stability and order above all else." "What about freedom?" Taemin asked. "Freedom exists within proper roles and relationships. Admiral Yuna is free to command her fleet, because she has earned that right through service. You are free to enjoy the honors of Kethmiran because you saved Nira, but I'm not free to leave." So Young sighed. "No, that freedom would dishonor the bond you created." Nira visited Taemin every day. She was fully recovered now, her skin glowing with healthy blue and gold patterns. She called him Samchon, which So Young explained meant uncle in an old human language called Korean. Nira had been studying human culture to better understand her new family member. "I learned about Earth," Nira said one day, practicing her English. "You have many different countries and languages. Is it true that humans sometimes fight each other?" "Yes," Taemin admitted. "Humans don't always agree on things. But you saved me even though I was a stranger." "Even though helping me was dangerous," Taemin smiled. "That's what humans do. We help people who need help." Nira's skin shifted to thoughtful purple. "Mother says humans are unpredictable. She studies your military history. She says humans adapt very quickly to new situations." This caught Taemin's attention. "Why is she studying human military history?" "Because of the raiders," Nira said simply. "They attack our ships and steal our cargo. Our fleet cannot catch them because they do not fight with honor." So Young appeared in the doorway looking worried. "Nira, you should not discuss military matters." "But Samchon is family now," Nira protested. "Family should know about family problems." That evening, So Young returned to Taemin's quarters alone. She looked nervous, checking the corridor before entering. "What Nira told you is true," she said quietly. "There have been raids on Vellani shipping for the past 2 years. The attackers use hit-and-run tactics that our fleet is not designed to counter." "What kind of tactics?" Taemin asked. "They strike quickly, take what they want, and disappear before our ships can respond. They use small, fast vessels instead of large battleships. They do not announce themselves or issue formal challenges. They simply attack and flee," Taemin nodded. "Guerrilla warfare." Humans have been dealing with tactics like that for thousands of years. Admiral Yuna has been studying human military history, trying to understand how to fight such enemies. But our military traditions are very old. We are trained for formal battles between honorable opponents. And these raiders aren't honorable. They are pirates and criminals from many different species. Some are even former Villani who have abandoned our ways. They know our weaknesses because they understand our traditions. Taman was beginning to see a larger picture. Is that why Yuna really wants to keep me here? Not just for honor, but because she thinks I might be useful against these raiders. So Young looked uncomfortable. I cannot speak for the Admiral's thoughts, but I know she respects human adaptability. The way you saved Nira using improvised methods impressed her greatly. That night, Taman tried to escape. He had been observing the ship's routine for days, noting when the corridors were least guarded. Using tools from his room's maintenance panel, he managed to override the door lock. He made it 3 levels down before running into Commander Dongwu and 2 guards. Going somewhere, Kethmaran? Dongwu asked with a cold smile. I was just exploring, Taman said. Exploring toward the shuttle bay? How curious, Dongwu gestured to the guards. Please escort our honored guest back to his quarters and upgrade the security on his door. As they walked back, Dongwu spoke quietly. You disappoint me, human. Admiral Yuna offers you honor and position, and you repay her with betrayal. I repay her by wanting the freedom to choose my own path. Freedom is overrated, Dongwu said. Security and purpose are more valuable. The Admiral provides both. Back in his quarters, Taman found Nira waiting for him. Her skin was deep purple with worry. Samchon, why did you try to leave? She asked. Are you not happy with us? Taman sat beside her, choosing his words carefully. I am happy to know you and your mother, but on my world, we believe people should be free to make their own choices, even if those choices hurt other people. Even then, we think the right to choose is more important than comfort or safety. Nira thought about this for a long time. That sounds very lonely, she said finally. Sometimes it is, Taman admitted, but it also means that when someone chooses to help you, they really mean it. They're not doing it because they have to. You chose to save me, yes, and now Mother chooses to honor you, but you want to choose something different? Yes. Nira's skin shifted through several colors as she struggled with the concept. This is very confusing, Samchon. I will have to think about it. After she left, Taman stood at his window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was his adopted home, his job, his simple life. But here was a child who called him uncle, and a culture he was only beginning to understand. The question was whether he would ever get the chance to choose between them. The Villani homeworld was beautiful beyond anything Taman had ever imagined. Crystal spires reached toward the sky like frozen music. Gardens floated in the air, held up by technology he could not understand. The cities glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the buildings themselves, but Taman barely noticed the beauty. He was being taken to face a trial. Commander Dongwu had formally accused him of dishonoring the life debt. The escape attempt was proof, Dongwu claimed, that Taman did not value Villani traditions or Admiral Yuna's gratitude. The human seeks to use our customs for his own gain, Dongwu had said before the council. He saved the Admiral's daughter, yes, but now he refuses the honor we offer. This suggests his motives were not pure. The trial was held in the Hall of Ancient Wisdom, a vast chamber where Villani leaders had gathered for thousands of years. The walls were covered with shifting patterns of light that told the history of their people. At the front of the hall sat 5 elderly Villani, their skin so old it had turned to deep silver. These were the Wisdom Keepers, the oldest and most respected members of Villani society. They would judge whether Taman had honored or dishonored the life debt. Admiral Yuna sat to one side, her expression carefully neutral. Nira was not allowed in the hall. The trial was considered too serious for a child to witness. So Young stood nearby as translator, though many of the Wisdom Keepers spoke some English. The eldest keeper spoke first. His voice was like wind through crystal caves. Human called Taman Park. You stand accused of dishonoring a sacred bond. How do you answer? Taman stood straight. I honor the bond I made with Nira when I saved her life. But I do not understand why honoring that bond means I cannot choose my own path. This caused murmurs throughout the hall. Commander Dongwu stepped forward. The human speaks of choice as if it matters more than duty. This is the flaw in human thinking. They believe individual desires outweigh social obligations. Choice is not just desire, Taman replied. It is the foundation of who we are. When I saved Nira, I chose to risk my life for a stranger. That choice had meaning because it was freely made. The second wisdom keeper leaned forward. But if you are free to reject our gratitude, then our gratitude has no value. This makes your sacrifice meaningless. No, Taman said firmly. My sacrifice has meaning because I chose to make it. Your gratitude has meaning because you choose to feel it. But forcing me to accept rewards I do not want makes both meaningless. The hall erupted in discussion. The wisdom keepers spoke rapidly among themselves in their musical language. Admiral Yuna's skin flickered between colors as she listened to the debate. Commander Dongwu sensed the confusion and pressed his advantage. You see, the human's words create chaos where there should be order. He speaks of freedom as if it is more important than family, more valuable than honor. This is why humans fight wars among themselves while we have known peace for centuries. Your peace comes from everyone agreeing to follow the same rules, Taman said. But what happens when those rules don't work anymore? What happens when you face enemies who don't follow your traditions? This struck close to home. Everyone knew about the raider attacks. The formal Villani fleet had been unable to stop the pirates because they fought without honor or predictable patterns. The third wisdom keeper spoke slowly. You suggest that our ways are inadequate. I suggest that rigid systems break when they face flexible opponents. Humans learned this lesson long ago. We survive by adapting, by thinking of new solutions to new problems. And this is why you refuse our honor? Because it is rigid? Taman thought carefully before answering. I refuse to be forced into any role, even an honored one. True honor comes from choice, not obligation. Commander Dongwu laughed harshly. Listen to him. He speaks as if his personal feelings matter more than the structure of our entire society. This is human arrogance at its worst. The fourth wisdom keeper raised her hand for silence. Let the human explain further. What would you have us do? Ignore the life debt? Pretend that saving our admiral's child means nothing? Thank me sincerely, offer me gifts if you want, but let me choose whether to accept them. Let me choose whether to stay or go. Make your gratitude an invitation, not a prison. The hall was quiet now. The wisdom keepers looked troubled. These concepts were challenging the very foundation of their social order. The eldest keeper spoke again. In our culture, choice exists within proper relationships. A child chooses how to serve their family. A citizen chooses how to serve their community. A warrior chooses how to serve their fleet. But the choice to serve is not optional. Then you don't really have choice, Taman said. You have the illusion of choice within predetermined paths. Before anyone could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the hall. The crystal walls flashed red warnings. A young officer rushed in and spoke urgently to Admiral Yuna. Her skin went pale, then blazed with angry red patterns. She stood and addressed the hall. The raiders have attacked the peaceful Haven colony, so Young translated. 3 cargo ships destroyed, 2 passenger vessels missing. The attack happened while our main fleet was here for the trial. The timing was no coincidence. The raiders knew that most of the Villani fleet would be at the homeworld for such an important ceremony. They had used the trial as a distraction to strike at a vulnerable target. Commander Dongwu's face darkened. We must respond immediately. Our fleet can reach the colony in 6 hours. The raiders will be long gone by then, Admiral Yuna replied. They strike fast and disappear. By the time we arrive, there will be nothing left but wreckage. The eldest wisdom keeper looked at Taman. Human, you speak of adaptation and new solutions. What would your people do in this situation? Taman felt all eyes in the hall focusing on him. We would think like the enemy. They're using our own traditions against us. They know you'll hold formal trials and ceremonies. They know you'll respond with massive fleets moving in predictable patterns. And your solution? Stop being predictable. Use small, fast ships. Set traps. Make them think they're attacking an easy target, then hit them from directions they don't expect. Admiral Yuna stepped forward. You would help us plan such tactics? If you want my help, yes. But as a free advisor, not as a prisoner bound by debt. Commander Dongwu protested loudly. This human is still on trial. He cannot make demands of the wisdom keepers. The eldest keeper raised his hand. The trial is suspended. We face a greater crisis now. He looked at Admiral Yuna. You may consult with the human, but he remains under the authority of this council. As they prepared to leave the hall, Nira appeared in the doorway. She had been listening from outside despite being forbidden to enter. "Mother," she said in clear English, "I have something to say about Samchon Taimin." Admiral Yuna frowned. "Nira, children do not speak in the Hall of Wisdom." "But I am not just a child," Nira said, walking forward with surprising confidence. "I am the one he saved. I am the center of this life debt. Should I not have a voice in what it means?" The Wisdom Keepers looked at each other uncertainly. This was not covered in their ancient traditions. Nira continued before anyone could stop her. "Samchon Timin taught me about choice. He says that real love and real gratitude come from choosing, not from being forced. If we force him to accept our honor, then our honor becomes worthless." The hall was silent. A child had just challenged thousands of years of tradition with simple logic that none of the adults could easily refute. The eldest Wisdom Keeper looked at Nira with something that might have been respect. "What do you propose, young one?" "Let Samchon choose," Nira said simply. "If he chooses to help us, then his help will be real. If we force him to help, then we are no better than the raiders who take what they want." Before anyone could respond, more alarms sounded. Another attack was underway. The second attack was happening at the trade station near the border worlds. Admiral Yuna watched the reports coming in, her skin shifting through angry reds and worried purples. The raiders had hit 3 locations in the past hour, all perfectly timed to catch the Villani fleet off guard. "They're coordinating these attacks," Taemin said as he studied the tactical display. "Someone is feeding them information about your fleet movements." Commander Dongwu scowled. "You accuse us of harboring traitors? I'm stating facts. They know exactly where your ships are at all times. That's not luck, that's intelligence." The eldest Wisdom Keeper had followed them to the command center. His ancient face was grim as he watched the destruction reports. "What do you recommend, human?" "Stop following protocol," Taemin said. "Your enemies know your playbook because they're probably former Villani. Change the rules." Admiral Yuna turned to face him. "You would help us plan this strategy?" "If Nira releases me from the life debt, yes. I'll help as a free ally, not as an obligated prisoner." The hall fell silent. Everyone looked at Nira, who stood beside her mother with determination far beyond her years. "I, Nira of the Yuna family line, release Taemin Park from all obligations of the Kethmiran bond," she said formally. "I choose to make him family through love, not duty." Commander Dongwu stepped forward angrily. "A child cannot dissolve a life debt. This is not how our traditions work." "Then maybe our traditions need to change," Nira replied calmly. The eldest Wisdom Keeper raised his hand. "The child speaks wisdom. In a crisis, we must adapt or perish. Taemin Park, you are free to choose your path." Taemin felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in weeks, he could breathe freely. "Then I choose to help stop these raiders. Not because I have to, but because it's right." Admiral Yuna's skin brightened with relief and gratitude. "What do you need?" "A mixed crew of humans and Villani, small fast ships, and permission to break every rule of honorable warfare." Within hours, Taemin found himself aboard a modified scout ship with a crew unlike any in Villani history. So Young served as cultural liaison. Hyunwoo, a young Villani pilot, had volunteered to learn human tactics. Mina, a human communications officer from New Busan, had been brought in when Admiral Yuna contacted the mining colony. "This is crazy," Mina said as they prepared to launch. 6 months ago, I was tracking cargo shipments. Now I'm part of an alien military operation." "Welcome to my life," Taemin replied. "At least you got to choose to be here." Their first target was the raider base that intelligence suggested was hidden in the asteroid field near Kepler Station. Traditional Villani tactics would involve sending a large fleet to search systematically. Instead, Taemin planned something different. "We're going to make ourselves look like an easy target," he explained to the crew. "A single cargo ship with valuable supplies traveling alone through the asteroid field." Hyunwoo looked confused. "But that would be suicide. The raiders will destroy us." "Not if we're ready for them," Taemin said. "Humans call this a trap." They disguised their scout ship as a civilian cargo vessel and broadcast fake shipping manifests showing valuable medical supplies. Then they waited in the asteroid field, engines running low to mimic a ship with mechanical problems. The raiders took the bait within 3 hours. 5 pirate ships emerged from hiding places among the asteroids. They were fast, heavily armed, and confident. Their leader broadcast the usual demand for surrender and cargo transfer. "This is Captain Roth of the Free Fleet," the transmission said. "Surrender your cargo and you will not be harmed." Taemin recognized the accent. The captain was human, probably from one of the outer colonies. "This is cargo ship Lucky Star," he replied. "We're having engine problems. Please don't hurt us." The pirate ships moved in for an easy capture. That was when Admiral Yuna's hidden fleet struck. Volani warships emerged from concealment behind larger asteroids. But instead of the formal battle formations the pirates expected, they attacked in small groups using hit-and-run tactics that Taemin had taught them. The pirates found themselves surrounded and outmaneuvered. Their leader's confident voice turned desperate as his ships were picked off one by one. "How did you know where to find us?" Captain Roth demanded as his damaged ship was boarded. "We thought like you instead of like ourselves," Admiral Yuna replied. The captured pirates revealed the location of their main base and, more importantly, the identity of their spy within the Volani fleet. Commander Dongwu had been feeding information to the raiders in exchange for personal wealth and power. "You sold out your own people," Taemin said as Dongwu was arrested. "I was preparing for the future," Dongwu replied coldly. "Volani traditions are dying. The raiders represent the new order." "The new order lost," Admiral Yuna said simply. "The final battle took place at the raiders' hidden base in a dead star system. This time, the entire Volani fleet participated, but they fought using human tactics adapted to Volani technology. Ships worked in small groups instead of massive formations. They used deception and surprise instead of formal challenges. Most importantly, they adapted their plans as the battle progressed instead of following rigid protocols. Taemin led a boarding party onto the main raider ship, fighting alongside Volani warriors who had learned to think like humans. They moved fast, struck hard, and disappeared before the enemy could respond effectively. The raider fleet was destroyed completely. Those who surrendered were taken prisoner, while those who fled found their escape routes blocked by Volani ships that had anticipated their movements. In the aftermath, Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the wreckage of the raider base. Her skin showed patterns of satisfaction and relief. "You have taught us much about warfare," she said to Taemin. "But more importantly, you have taught us about choice." "What do you mean?" "For generations we believed that order came from following ancient rules. But you showed us that true strength comes from choosing to do what is right, even when it is difficult." Nira ran onto the bridge, her skin glowing bright gold with excitement. "Samchon, Mother says you can stay and help build a new alliance between our peoples. Or you can return to your mining colony," Admiral Yuna added. "The choice is yours." Taemin looked out at the stars, thinking of his simple life on New Busan. Then he looked at Nira's hopeful face and thought about the future these two species could build together. "I choose to stay," he said, "but not as Keth Moran or as an honored prisoner. As a friend and ally." "What is the difference?" Admiral Yuna asked. "Friends choose to help each other. They don't force obligations on each other." 1 year later, Taemin stood on the observation deck of the new joint Human-Volani research station. Ships from both species worked together in perfect harmony. Their crews trained in tactics that combined the best of both cultures. He received a message from his old mining crew on New Busan. They were planning to visit his fancy new job next month. Taemin smiled, thinking about how surprised they would be. Nira appeared beside him carrying a drawing she had made. It showed a human and a Volani child standing together under 2 different colored suns. "Samchon," she said in much improved English, "will you teach me more about making choices?" "Every day," Taemin replied. "That's what freedom means, learning to choose wisely every single day." Outside the window, human mining ships worked alongside Volani exploration vessels. The future was uncertain, but it was a future they were building together by choice, not obligation. And that made all